So in today's video, what we're going to talk about is drums. Making your own drums, programming them from scratch. Hey guys, Dilby here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing good. I recently did polls on some of my socials asking you guys what you wanted to see on the channel, what topics you wanted me to cover. And writing drums from scratch and just seeing things from scratch in general was like really high at the top of that list. So we're going to give it a go. I'm not sure what the results are going to be, but what I want to show you are some techniques for getting swing and groove into your drums, what goes into making a drum pattern for a track, and if you're a beginner, just really how you program beats. I'm also going to show you a way that you can kind of break down what goes into making these drum loops that you hear on Splice and Loop Masters, that type of thing. As always, the project file is available for download. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to go grab a copy from my Patreon. Patreon is an amazing platform for supporting creators and one of the best ways that you can ensure I keep bringing you these videos every week. I was actually reflecting on this recently and there's quite a few topics, quite a few artists covered, so there's some really cool stuff over there. And if you sign up for the Patreon, you get access to all of those projects, not just this one. So maybe you want to jump over there, have a look, see if you're interested. Anyway, enough of that, let's make some beats. Alright guys, here we are inside Ableton. You may notice a quick costume change. That's because I recorded this video yesterday and I screwed up the audio. It happens. So we're recording it again today. On the upside, that means I did 2 drum beats yesterday and you're going to get those and we're going to do 2 fresh ones today. So let's go. So the first thing I want to show you is actually a way that you can kind of figure out what to put in your drum loops. Because when you're listening to loops on Splice or Loop Masters or whatever, or listening to a reference track, it can be quite hard to differentiate between what are the different elements in the loop. So a really cool tool to kind of break this down is that some loop packs will have like a full loop and then the loop will be broken down into individual elements. Not every pack will do this, so you have to do a bit of digging to find the right ones. But I found a whole pack on Spice which does this by Toolroom. It's called Raw Drums. It's worth checking out, but I've got a couple of examples here and I'm going to just show you quickly how that works. So here are the loops that we're going to have a look at. I'll just play them quickly. Being that it's raw drums, they're quite kind of gritty, dirty, techie kind of things. So let's have a look at the first one, Tundra, right? Got a kick. We've got a clap. So in that clap, we can hear that it's actually made up of 2 claps, which if you're listening to the full loop, you might actually miss, and it's not so easy to understand and hear that kind of separation of those individual elements, right? So then we've got some hats, or a top, as they've called it. I can see why they've called it top, because it's got like the kind of top of a kick drum and then a closed hat and a more open closed hat. So there's kind of 3 elements in that top loop. But it's not like a full top loop from a regular sample pack. Then we've got this percussion hit, perk. Big distorted tom drum sound. And then we've got a snare, which is either 2 sounds or the same sound with the second hit gated. But I think it's 2 different sounds, which again, you might not pick up on if you're just listening to that in the loop. You know, it's really hard to pick out all of those individual sounds. So this is a great way to kind of understand a bit more what goes into making up these loops. So let's have a look at one more. So what goes into that? We've got a kick. Clap. A nice, tight, aggressive closed hat. We've got a top. So there's a couple of kind of gritty, noisy kind of percussion hits there, and then one more. It sounds like it's got some delay going on, but the detail of that would be so hard to hear within this loop. And we've got this percussion loop. Cool. We can hear that that's 2 drum sounds, and it's kind of making this interesting pattern, which really works with the groove of the kick drums and the rest of the elements. So when you can break down these elements, you're able to see that it's not quite as complicated as it seems when you're listening to this. And you can also see that there is some subtlety in some of these loops that you may miss when you're just trying to listen to the whole thing. So if you're starting out, that's a really cool trick that you can use to get a better understanding of what might go into making one of these cool loops. All right, now let's make some drums. We're going to do this like live. It's not rehearsed. I don't know what I'm going to come up with, and I don't know if it's going to be good, but we'll give it a go. Basically, I'm going to show you how I go about programming my own drums. Actually, I don't use the drum rack, but it's for demonstration purposes. This is like the best tool in Ableton to show the drums, because you're going to be able to see the MIDI pattern all in one place. Just kind of out of habit, really. I do put them into individual MIDI tracks and use a simpler for each drum sound, but maybe I'll start doing it like this. Here's our MIDI track, and these are all the drums. We're going to start with a kick. So I'm just going to paint this in, bring the volume up on this. Cool. So let's add a clap. Okay, that's way too loud. So I'm just holding Alt there. I think it might be a bit different on a Mac, but I'm just holding Alt there and then dragging on the clip, which allows me to change the velocity. What we can also do is expand it like this, which gives us kind of volume control of each of these different elements. It's really handy. Okay, so nothing special on that clap. So what I'm going to do is go here and use the hot swap to find a new clap that I like, that kind of sounds good in the context. Okay, that one sounds cool to me. And now what I'm going to do is go back in here, and I'm going to copy these MIDI notes down, and we're going to layer this a little bit. I'm going to drag this second one off the grid a little bit, and I'm going to drag this one off the grid this way a little bit. Okay, so let's find another sound for this one. Of course, we want to listen in context. So play. All right, that sounds cool. So those the reason I listen in context is because those drum sounds, if on their own, they may not have sounded like the right sound for me, but it doesn't matter what they sound like on their own. It only matters what they sound like together with the other elements in the loop. So let's add an open hat. Now I'm going to try a different pattern, something like this. No. Okay, not a big fan of that sound at the moment, so let's find a better one. I like that. So what else are we going to add in here? Let's add a bit of a snare. Okay, then I'm going to duplicate this loop. And maybe add another snare there. No, I want it there. No, I want it here. Cool. So the thing that's going to give us groove in the loop is the elements that are sitting in these 16th notes. So not the downbeat, not the offbeat, but the other notes here. So the 2nd 16th and the 4th 16th. Those are what kind of creates swing and groove in the loop. I'm also going to add a bit of groove. These claps, I might bring them down in volume a little bit. I'm going to add a snare on top of these claps, just to give it a bit more punch. So if I click here, I'll get to my snare. Now let's adjust the envelope a bit. Now, what else are we going to add? Let's add in a shaker, and that will probably be enough for this. So with the shaker, I'm going to just program 16th notes, and I'll make this one a little bit quieter. I can also use Alt and drag it like this. Make this one a bit louder, and this one a little bit louder still. So then I can duplicate that across the pattern, and let's find an appropriate sound. Okay. Now what I can do is use the panning here to spread some of these elements out. Maybe these two claps, I'll pan one a bit left and one a bit right. And this open hat, I'll pan it a little bit to the left to offset it against the shaker. Cool. A nice housey loop there. Let's do another one. So again, start with the kick. All right, for this one, let's add in a 16th note closed hat. That's a clap. So I want that to swing a bit more. So what I can do is grab this LFO tool that I've got, hold Command, and just drop it onto my closed hat here. Now it's going to have added it here. And I will add some random pan. Let's get a different kick for this one, right? So I like the sound of that. So there's a good lesson. I like the sound of the kick in isolation, but once I was playing a kick pattern, I wasn't really that into it. So it's always best to listen to your sounds in context, in my humble opinion. So let's chuck in some percussion hits. Anyone who makes sample packs, please, please, for the love of God, try and crop your samples to the start. Just makes it so much easier for the producer. Now let's maybe add in a tom. Now I want something to answer this percussion here, somewhere in the second half of the bar, right? So let's use a different sound. And that's a cool sound, but maybe let's have that as a clap, a little finger snap. So we still need something to answer that percussion. Okay, so we're pretty lucky with the first one there, but let's actually just so I think that would sound better here. Maybe here. No. Okay, let's duplicate the loop and maybe try something different on the end of the second one. So you can see there that I'm playing with the velocity of the different elements to help the groove and help things kind of sound different, sound a bit more natural. I'm going to add in the swing. This one, I want it to be a little bit quieter. Okay, maybe an open hat. Let's try from, or maybe let's try a shaker as an open hat. Here we go. So now I can just duplicate that across. Okay, bring that down in volume a bit. Let's find a bit of sound. Okay, so I can just hear, it might sound cool with a double one there. To get a bit more swing, let's add a few kind of slightly random closed hats. Now maybe also there. And I want a bit of differentiation between these, maybe that one down a bit. No, let's try reversing it. And let's put that there. And then let's duplicate that in the second half. And try and switch it up a bit. Now I want this to be maybe like that. Okay, so I can hear there that this might sound cool if it's duplicated again, and just have that on the last one. Maybe on this one, let's try an open hat. Cool, but I want it to be a bit quieter. And maybe a different sound. Okay, and then we could also duplicate that on this bar and try something like that. Cool, I'm happy with that. And these are the ones from yesterday. So 4 very different loops using the same technique. If I'm doing this for a track, I'll probably spend a bit more than 5 or 7 minutes tweaking the sounds and tweaking the pattern a bit. But the workflow is the same way that I work. I basically just start small and then kind of extend it out and try to make that loop 4 or 8 bars or something with just slight differentiation in each section of the loop. And that way it's going to feel like that loop is less repetitive and has more kind of interest, more character going over the length of the loop. And what I'll try to do is use like percussion or snares or something to have little kind of characteristic motifs that help to carry that loop and make it interesting and keep it kind of grooving. If you're having trouble programming drums, 2 key takeaways from this are find some of these loops that have the individual elements, which can allow you to understand what goes into creating that loop. And this is going to kind of demystify the whole thing a bit for you. The next key thing that I want you to remember is it doesn't matter what the drum sounds like on its own. It matters what it sounds like in the context of the loop. Use the hot swap function. You can use this in everything in Ableton. And actually this week I was talking to one of my mentoring clients who uses Logic, and he explained that you can actually do this in Logic, although not a lot of people know about it. So if you're a Logic user, make sure you're doing it. Hot swap, so key. It makes finding the right sounds for your loop so much easier because you're just listening to whether it sounds good with the elements you have already, not whether it sounds good on its own. So as always, you can download this project. You can get in there and have a look at the MIDI of what I've done here a bit more closely, have a look at the drum kits I've made up, and hopefully that can give you a deeper understanding of these techniques. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Hopefully it was informative for you and hopefully you learned something. The loops that I came up with weren't exactly revolutionary and aren't going to change the world, but you saw me do it in real time and got to see the process of how I go about finding the right sounds. It can take a bit longer than 5 minutes to make a cool drum loop, but you get the idea, you get the technique, and you see how I go about it. If you're looking for more foundational info on writing house and techno, then check out this video I did on the 5 fundamental bass lines. It's good. Anyway guys, that's it for today. We'll catch you next time. Peace.